Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something that is, honestly, deeply unsettling. We're examining three absolutely harrowing personal accounts that completely strip away that comforting, safe veneer of modern medicine to reveal a terrifying truth. And that truth is that clinical spaces, whether they're fully active or long abandoned, act as these perfect incubators for intense psychological distress. I mean, we usually think of hospitals as places of safety, right? Places of healing and science. But as you'll see, when the sterile lights go out, when that sheer exhaustion sets in, and when isolation totally takes hold, the very architecture of healing can rapidly transform into a labyrinth of creeping dread. We're going to treat these accounts as a psychological case study today, and we'll break down the exact mechanics of how clinical environments literally amplify our absolute deepest vulnerabilities.
How did you know? Get me out of here! He's coming! Just imagine hearing those words screamed by an elderly Alzheimer's patient in the dead of the night. It immediately shatters any illusion of safety on that hospital ward. Now, this isn't a line from some horror movie. This was the genuine, visceral reaction of a real patient named Lena, just moments after her nurse experienced a terrifying anomaly in that exact same ward. It is the precise moment where the clinical baseline just fractures and that creeping dread entirely takes over. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The sterile baseline. Before we get into the shadows, we have to establish our skeptical, medical baseline, right? When we hear stories of hospital horror, our rational minds instinctively search for a physiological explanation. We want to point to something like delirium. We desperately want to believe there's a medical reason for the madness. And this is a cold, hard medical reality. In one of our accounts, a woman suffering from severe bacterial meningitis starts hearing voices in her otherwise empty house. The official medical diagnosis? Antibiotic-induced delirium. It perfectly explains away the horror, doesn't it? But it forces us to ask the foundational question of this explainer. Can sheer physical exhaustion, severe illness, and running on negative sleep really just fabricate our worst nightmares out of thin air?
Moving right along. Section 2. Anatomy of physical isolation.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the environment itself actually acts as a trap, creating this terrifying duality. Visually, just think about the juxtaposition. You've got these bright, sterile, highly controlled clinical spaces during the day. But at night, or when they're abandoned, they give way to these dark, hidden corners of intense vulnerability. The very architecture meant to monitor and protect suddenly becomes an isolating cage. So we have physical isolation. Think of a young nurse working a graveyard shift, totally alone in a dead quiet linen room. Or consider the urban explorers from our third account, completely cut off from the outside world in the pitch-black corridors of an abandoned hospital. But then we also have mental isolation. This is the hallucinatory cage of an Alzheimer's patient whose mind is drifting, or a woman trapped in a severe meningitis-induced fever dream. Both forms of isolation completely cut you off from reality. Both leave you absolutely defenseless.
These environments act as what we'll call the clinical incubator. Take a moment to consider the specific vulnerabilities of our three subjects. We've got a nurse running on virtually no sleep during a graveyard shift. We have a patient suffering from a high fever, nausea, and a severe bacterial infection. And we have young urban explorers navigating totally unfamiliar, echoing corridors in pitch-black darkness right after climbing through a broken basement window. This extreme physical and mental exhaustion strips away our cognitive defenses. It violently primes the mind for pure, unadulterated terror. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 3. The trap of mental delirium. Once the mind is primed like that and the environment is isolated, we can map out exactly how this terror escalates. All three of these seemingly unconnected stories follow the exact same chronology of fear. At minute 0, we have baseline normalcy. A nursing shift begins. An unconventional Tinder date starts. Fine. But then, right around minute 30, the isolation takes hold. Auditory anomalies start to break that clinical silence. We're talking echoing doors slamming in an empty ward, or a child's whispering voice in an empty house. By minute 60, the auditory manifests into a very real visual threat. Smiling men in black, toxic visitors suddenly at the bedside. And by minute 61, the illusion of safety is completely gone, and that primitive flight response is entirely activated. Let's focus on that auditory anomaly phase for just a second. Mom, hello. That is the exact phrase heard by the meningitis patient echoing from downstairs in her home. What makes this so utterly haunting is that she doesn't have any children.
Imagine the profound sensory isolation of being so sick that your own brain starts generating the terrifying voices of people who simply do not exist. It's really the ultimate betrayal by your own mind.
Okay, things are escalating. Section 4. Blurring boundaries of reality. Now here is where the story shifts gears entirely, and that comfortable medical safety net is just completely destroyed. We cross from the realm of the psychological straight into the terrifying realm of the physical. Where exactly does the medical hallucination end and the physical threat begin? I mean, when you're alone in the dark and you see something horrifying, it is so easy to just blame your overactive imagination. But what happens when reality actually provides a receipt? What happens when the monster you thought was in your head is literally standing right in front of you?
Now, what's really interesting about this is how undeniable external confirmations turn suspected hallucinations into real-life true crime threats. It's terrifying when reality hands you that receipt. The meningitis patient hallucinates her abusive ex-husband threatening her at her bedside. The skeptic in all of us diagnoses that as antibiotic delirium. But the unexplainable reality, a nurse casually confirms that someone identifying as Cousin David actually did visit her in the middle of the night, which was later corroborated by his own threatening text messages. The nurse in the Alzheimer's ward sees a smiling man in black. The skeptic's diagnosis, exhaustion hallucination. The reality, her patient Lena described the exact same man lurking in the room all night long. The urban explorers hear echoing doors. Diagnosis, overactive imagination. Reality, a 40-year-old intruder is physically hunting them through the dark. These external confirmations are absolutely undeniable.
This brings us to the climax. Section 5. Descent into pure panic.
The clinical baseline just totally flatlines here, and I want you to put yourself in their shoes as we map out these frantic final moments. You are the exhausted nurse. You're in a dead, quiet linen room. You know for a fact you are alone, and then a heavy hand grabs your shoulder. You spin around. Nothing is there. It's this jarring physical violation of your space while in total isolation.
You literally drop to the floor. It's pure hysteria. You look up at the glass door of the linen room, and there he is, the man in black. He's smiling right at you through the glass. The monster your Alzheimer's patient warned you about is entirely real, and he is looking right at you.
Or imagine you are the meningitis patient. You wake up super drowsy, successfully convincing yourself that the toxic abuse you heard in the night was just a nasty fever dream. That is, until the nurse casually mentions your late-night visitor. Until that text message pings on your phone. You suddenly realize your abuser was standing right over your highly vulnerable, sick body while you slept, and you were way too medicated to even try to defend yourself.
Now you're the urban explorer. You are balancing on a narrow wooden plank over a 10-foot drop in an abandoned hospital. You shine your flashlight into the pitch-black void below you, and staring right back up at you from the darkness is a man in a black beanie, smiling, saying in this deep, menacing cadence, "Come on down."
Blind terror just takes over. You run, you hit the stairwell, and you hear these heavy footsteps stomping right behind you. You're navigating a pitch-black maze, desperately fleeing, being actively hunted in a place where literally no one can hear you scream.
So the crucial point is this. Physical isolation and mental delirium form a terrifying combination that violently strips us of our ability to discern what is real and what is just a nightmare. But you know what? The most horrifying takeaway from all of this isn't that our minds play tricks on us in the dark. It's that sometimes they aren't playing tricks at all. When the sterile lights go out, does the hospital create the monsters in our minds, or does it simply invite them in? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Stay vigilant out there, and definitely keep questioning what you see in the dark.